of perception and, hence, no consensus on the view just adumbrated that external objects are the percept-object conditions of perceptual awareness. Idealists, for instance, argue that the percept-object conditions are to be located in the subject. Second, many fans of percept-object conditions, on both sides of the idealist/realist divide, argue that the substantial existence of such a condition, and the appropriate exercise of its power to produce perception, is a necessary condition of perception. Nagarjuna will be concerned to reject any such analysis, whether idealist or realist, in virtue of his attack on the notions of substantial existence, substantial difference, and causal power. Third, within the psychological domain, the account generalizes beyond perception. Conceptual states, imaginings, reasoning all can have percept-object conditions. To Western philosophical ears this seems odd. But from the standpoint of Buddhist epistemology and psychology, intentional 21 activity generally is the natural kind comprised by perception. So the point is that the intentional existence of the Golden Mountain is a percept-object condition of my being able to doubt that there is such a thing. Finally, the analysis bears generalization well beyond the psychological. For at the most abstract level, what is distinct about a percept-object condition is its existence simultaneously with and as a support for what it conditions. So Nagarjuna's attack on a substantialist understanding of this kind of explanans will apply, mutatis mutandis, to the case of a table supporting a book. The dominant condition is the purpose or end for which an action is undertaken. My hope for understanding of Madhyamika might be the dominant condition for my reading Nagarjuna's text, its presence before my eyes the percept-object condition, and the reflected light striking my eyes the efficient condition. The immediate conditions are the countless intermediary phenomena that emerge upon the analysis of a causal chain, in this case, the photon striking my retina, the excitation of photoreceptor cells, and so forth. A non-psychological example might be useful to illustrate the difference between the four kinds of condition and the picture Nagarjuna suggests of explanation in the most general sense. Suppose that you ask, why are the lights on? I might reply as follows. 1. Because I flicked the switch. I have appealed to an efficient condition. Or 2. Because the wires are in good working order, the bulbs haven't burned out, and the electricity is flowing. These are supporting conditions. Or 3. The light is the emission of photons, each of which is emitted in response to the bombardment of an atom by an electron, and so forth. I have appealed to a chain of immediate conditions. Or 4. So that we can see. This is the dominant condition. Any of these would be a perfectly good answer to the why question. But note that none of them makes reference to any causal powers or necessitation. The next 3 verses are crucial to Nagarjuna's understanding of the nature of conditions and their role in explanation. Nagarjuna first notes, 3. That in examining a phenomenon and its relations to its conditions, we don't find that phenomenon somehow contained potentially in those conditions. 3. The essence of entities is not present in the conditions, etc. If there is no essence, there can be no otherness essence. The point being made in the first 2 lines of the verse is fairly straightforward. When we examine the set of conditions that give rise to an entity, for example, the set of conditions we detailed above for the shining of a lamp, or the conditions for seeing a tree we discussed previously, no analysis of those conditions yields the consequent effect. Dissecting light switches, wires, brains, and so forth, does not reveal any hidden light. Nor is there a tree perception to be found already in the existence of the tree, the eye, and so forth. Rather, these phenomena arise as consequences of the collocation of those conditions. To borrow a Kantian turn of phrase, phenomena are not analytically contained in their conditions, rather, a synthesis is required out of which a phenomenon not antecedently existent comes to be. But Nagarjuna, through his use of the phrase, the essence of entities, Dengos Puranam's Chi Rang Dzin, emphasizes a very important metaphysical consequence of this observation, given that phenomena depend upon their conditions for their existence, and given that nothing answering to an essence of phenomena can be located in those conditions, and given that there is nowhere else that an essence could come from, it follows that phenomena that arise from conditions are essenceless. One might argue at this point that just as phenomena come into existence dependent upon conditions, their essences come into existence in this way. But what goes for phenomena 24 does not go for essences. For essences are by definition eternal and fixed. They are independent. And for a phenomenon to have an essence is for it to have some permanent independent core. So neither essences nor phenomena, if essences, can emerge from conditions. The next two lines require a careful gloss, both because of the complexity of the philosophical point at stake and because of the Buddhist philosophical term of art I translate as otherness essence, SKT, Parabhava, Tib, Zondan goes. Let us begin by glossing that term. In its primary sense it means to have, as a thing's nature, dependence upon another for existence. So for a table, for instance, to have otherness essence, according to a proponent of this analysis of the nature of things, might be for it to have as an essential characteristic the property of depending for its existence on some pieces of wood, a carpenter, and so forth. This way of thinking of the nature of things has great appeal, was used by those who defended the analysis of causation as production from other and the analysis of causes and their effects according to which they are linked by causal powers inhering in the causes, particularly for other Buddhist schools who would want to join with Nagarjuna in denying essence to phenomena. For such a philosopher, it would be congenial to argue that the table has no essence of its own, but has the essential property of depending on its parts, causes, and so forth, an essential property that depends critically on another. And it would then be important to note that this nature relies on the other having an intrinsic connection to the phenomenon in question, a connection realized in the causal powers, or other inherently existent relation to the effect of that other and, hence, in the other's own nature. Moreover, it is crucial to such an analysis, if it is not to lapse into the absurdities that plague self-causation, that there be a real, substantial difference in entity, a difference in intrinsic nature between the dependent phenomenon and the conditions on which it depends. Absent such a difference, the otherness required in the analysis cannot be established. Given this understanding of otherness essence, we can see the arguments Nagarjuna is ostending in the last two lines of this verse. First, since all entities are without their own essences, that is, without essences that can be specified intrinsically without reference to anything else, the other with respect to which any phenomenon is purportedly essentially characterized will be without an essence, and so there will be no basis on which to build this otherness essence. Second, without individual essences, there will be no basis on which to draw the absolute, essential distinctions necessary to establish phenomena as intrinsically other than their conditions. Without individual essences, there are not substantial differences. Without substantial differences, there are no absolute others by means of which to characterize phenomena. Third, in order to characterize phenomena as essentially different from their conditions, it is important to be able to characterize them independently. Otherwise, each depends for its identity on the other, and they are not truly distinct in nature. But the whole point of otherness essence is that things in virtue of having it are essentially dependent. So the view is in fact internally contradictory. Given that things have no intrinsic nature, they are not essentially different. Given that lack of difference, they are